The community center hadn't even cleared the memorial lilies when she struck me right there in front of everyone. Neighbors clutching their casserole dishes. The HOA board still gripping their bylaws binder like it was holy scripture. And the priest who'd just finished the service now frozen mid-blessing. Karen's manicured hand connected with my cheek because I'd whispered 5 words to my cousin Lisa. Something's wrong with this agreement. Blood trickled down my chin, staining the black dress I'd worn to bury my mother. But I didn't call the police. I called my lawyer. Because when the president of Harmony Heights HOA assaults you at your own mother's memorial over a forged, final compliance deed, you don't just get mad, you get everything, including the entire ridiculous neighborhood back. My name is Rachel Miles, and I grew up in this picture-perfect suburb where silence was the only currency that kept your lawn from being cited and secrets were buried deeper than any 6-foot privacy hedge. At 28, I'd built my entire career around ripping apart contracts and property regulations as head of legal compliance at a major real estate appraisal firm in Columbus. Numbers didn't lie. HOA covenants had ironclad terms, unlike the smiling neighbors who'd wave while quietly plotting your financial ruin. Mom died on a Tuesday. The stress was supposed to be manageable. Just another HOA violation notice for her overgrown flower bed that had exactly 3 extra daisies. Instead, I got the call at 3:47 a.m. from the hospital. Complications from the heart episode triggered by the $12,000 fine they'd slapped on her the week before surgery. They did everything they could. Karen was already there when I arrived. Her face a perfect mask of neighborly grief in the fluorescent hallway. My mother's closest HOA ally for 7 years stood accepting condolences from people who didn't know her like I did. Her blonde bob was perfectly sprayed, her pastel cardigan pressed, even in supposed devastation. "Rachel," she said, opening her arms for an embrace I couldn't dodge without causing a scene. Her signature lavender perfume made my stomach turn. "She's gone. Our dear Catherine is gone." As if her 7 years of petty rule enforcement trumped my 28 years of being her daughter. The next 3 days blurred. Flower arrangements that had to be HOA-approved colors, choosing between oak and mahogany caskets while Karen hovered, offering helpful suggestions about estate matters. "We need to discuss the house," she told me on Thursday, 2 days before the memorial. We sat in Mom's kitchen, my childhood kitchen, drinking coffee from her tiny violet-painted mugs she'd collected from estate sales before the HOA banned clutter. The mortgage, utilities, maintenance. These things don't pause for grief. She slid a thick folder across the table. Catherine was always so organized. She updated her final compliance agreement last month. Updated what exactly? The folder contained what looked like a notarized estate transfer covenant, declaring that upon her death the house at 451 Maple Street would revert to the Harmony Heights HOA in recognition of accumulated violations and for the benefit of the community fund. The language was boilerplate HOA legalese, generic and cold. Mom had spent hours researching every rule before planting a single petunia. This document looked downloaded from some shady template site. "She used Anderson and Associates," Karen continued, naming an HOA law firm I'd never heard of. "Said you were too close to the situation, being in the field yourself." Mom had used Jerry Hartman for 20 years, real estate closings, the house purchase, my college trust. Why suddenly switch for something this important? "I'll need to review this properly," I said, closing the folder. Karen leaned forward, all concerned neighbor smiles. "Of course, Rachel. But if you need time away from all this legal stuff, the board can handle everything. That's what neighbors do." Neighbors. The word tasted like the cheap coffee she'd brought in a thermos labeled HOA Pride. Saturday came too fast. The community center smelled of lilies and industrial air freshener, a combination that would forever remind me of loss. I stood in the receiving line accepting condolences from Mom's book club, her retired librarian friends, neighbors who remembered me skin-knee biking in their driveways. Karen played the grieving board president perfectly, dabbing dry eyes with tissues, speaking in a low, wounded voice about how Catherine had completed our little HOA family. The reading of the compliance agreement was scheduled immediately after the service, Karen's idea. Better to handle everything at once, she'd said, like ripping off a bandage. As the priest delivered his final blessings, I watched Karen check her watch twice. My cousin Lisa sat beside me, her husband juggling their kids. She'd driven up from Cincinnati despite the flu. "You okay?" she whispered. "Something's bothering me," I admitted quietly. "Mom changed firms last month. Updated this covenant right before her heart episode." Lisa frowned. "That's weird. Aunt Catherine hated change. Remember when she kept that broken mailbox for 3 years because she didn't want to learn the new HOA paint code?" "Exactly." I glanced at Karen guiding people toward the reception room where Anderson and Associates had set up a podium. "The reading is in 10 minutes, she announced. During the memorial, as Catherine requested. It's easier this way. The room had been turned into a makeshift HOA courtroom. Folding chairs faced the podium where a young lawyer, barely out of school, shuffled papers nervously. Karen sat front row, tissue in hand. As people settled, I studied the crowd. Most looked confused. Estate readings weren't usually public, but Karen had insisted on full transparency because Catherine would want the neighborhood to know her wishes. The lawyer, Brandon Anderson, cleared his throat. "Thank you all for being here during this difficult time. Mrs. Karen requested her final wishes be shared with those closest to her." Mrs. Karen? Mom had kept her maiden name Miles even after any HOA nonsense. Another red flag. The final compliance agreement of Catherine Karen dated. "Excuse me," I interrupted. "You mean Catherine Miles?" Brandon looked flustered. I have Catherine Karen here." Karen shot me a warning glare. "Perhaps we could discuss technicalities later. Rachel, let the man finish." The reading continued. Personal effects to friends, jewelry to Lisa, books to the club. Then the hammer. The remainder of my estate, including the property at 451 Maple Street, all financial accounts, investments, and the educational trust established for my daughter Rachel Miles, I leave to the Harmony Heights HOA, to be managed by President Karen Karen, who has shown me true community partnership in my final years. The room went dead silent. Lisa grabbed my hand. The educational trust we'd built together. Karen knew about it. She'd once called it premature planning at a board meeting. "That's not right," I whispered. "The trust required dual signatures to modify." "Is there a problem?" Brandon asked, voice cracking. I looked straight at Karen. "This doesn't match the draft Mom emailed me 3 months ago." Karen replied smoothly, "Drafts change. Rachel, your mother had time to reflect before her episode. She wanted to ensure the neighborhood could take care of everything without bureaucratic complications." "When did she sign this?" Brandon checked his notes. "January 15th, 5 days before her heart episode, when she'd been on pre-op meds that made her dizzy, when I'd had to drive her everywhere because she couldn't focus." "This feels wrong," I whispered, not quietly enough. The slap came fast. Karen's hand connected with my cheek in a movement so sudden gasps echoed. I tasted copper. "How dare you?" she snarled, her perfect neighbor mask cracking. "How dare you question your mother's wishes at her own memorial?" I touched my face, fingers bloody. People sat frozen. Violence at a memorial was unheard of, even in HOA hell. A child started crying. But I didn't look away from Karen's face. For the first time in 7 years I saw her clearly. Not the helpful president who brought welcome baskets. Not the woman who'd supported Mom after Dad died. I saw a predator who'd waited until Mom was weakest to strike. "You're right," I said quietly, blood dripping. "How dare I?" Then I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd saved but never needed. Jerry Hartman answered on the second ring. Jerry, it's Rachel Miles. I'm at my mother's memorial and I need you to listen very carefully. Karen's face went white. The game had just begun. The community center erupted. Karen lunged for my phone, but Lisa's husband Mark stepped between us. Touch her again, Mark said quietly, and I'll return the favor. Brandon was frantically gathering papers, pale as milk. Perhaps we should postpone. Sit down, I commanded, voice steady despite the blood. Nobody leaves until I get answers. You're being hysterical, Karen spat, but she'd backed away. Catherine warned me you might react badly. Did she also warn you that I record all my conversations with her? The lie slipped out easily, including the one where Mom said she was updating everything with Jerry Hartman. Karen's jaw tightened. Show me the original signature page, I told Brandon. Not a copy. I don't have. You conducted a public reading without originals? My professional voice took over, the one I used deposing shady contractors. Are you even licensed in Ohio? Lisa was already recording on her phone. Other neighbors whispered, some heading for exits. Let them go. The only witness I needed was sweating behind the podium. Mr. Anderson, I continued, when exactly did my mother sign this? January 15th at 3 p.m. He stammered. Where? Our offices. An address I didn't recognize, some strip mall on the outskirts. Interesting. I pulled up my calendar. Because on January 15th at 3 p.m., my mother was at Columbus General having pre-op blood work. Time-stamped at 3:17 p.m. The lab noted she was dizzy from fasting. How exactly did she teleport to your office? Silence. Even the crying child quieted. Brandon was sweating through his suit. There might have been a clerical error with the time. Was there also a clerical error with her name, Catherine Karen instead of Miles? Or with the mysterious inclusion of a trust that requires dual signatures? Jerry Hartman walked in before anyone could answer. My mother's real lawyer looked exactly as I remembered, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, same battered briefcase. Rachel, he said, taking in my bloody face. What's going on here? Karen stood, trying authority. This is a private neighborhood matter. Sit down, Mrs. Karen. Jerry's voice could freeze lava. He approached Brandon. Young man, are you representing yourself as executing Catherine Miles's final documents? Brandon handed over the papers with shaking hands. Jerry studied them for 30 seconds before his face darkened. This is fascinating, considering I have Catherine Miles's actual trust and estate plan in my office safe. Executed December 10th with video documentation. Karen stood abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. I blocked her path. Actually, you do. See, here's what I think happened. You knew Mom was terrified about her heart episode. You knew the meds made her confused. So you found the hungriest, least ethical HOA attorney you could, Brandon, and created this forgery. You can't prove. I don't have to prove it yet. I smiled, tasting blood. But I'm betting when the police check Columbus General security footage on January 15th, they won't see Mom leaving for any mysterious signing. I'm betting the signature analysis will show discrepancies. And I'm betting Brandon here is about to tell us exactly how much you paid him to risk his license. Brandon broke. She said she was dying, wanted to simplify things for the neighborhood, too proud to admit she'd been wrong about the old covenants. Shut up, Karen snarled. Old covenants? I asked softly. Brandon kept going. Mrs. Karen said Catherine refused to sign some pre-existing HOA transfer but wanted to make things right before her episode. Said she was embarrassed. Wanted it handled quietly. So quietly she used a different name and a lawyer she'd never met. Jerry's disgust was palpable. How much did she pay you? 10,000. Cash. The room exploded. Mark called 911. Several neighbors who'd been leaving stopped, drawn back by the drama. Karen tried for the door, but two of Mom's retired librarian friends, both built like linebackers, blocked her. You killed her, I said suddenly, the realization hitting like ice. The fines, the forced renovation, the stress you pushed for that mandatory roof update when her doctor wanted to wait. You insisted on your approved contractor instead of the one she trusted. Jerry was already on his phone. I need the Catherine Miles file. Yes, all of it. And call Detective Morrison. Tell him it's urgent. Karen's mask shattered. You sanctimonious little, just like your mother. Always thinking you're better than the rules. Always asking questions. Do you know what it was like? 7 years of Rachel this and Rachel that. And Rachel so smart with her big job. 7 years of being second to the neighborhood. The replacement president. So you killed her for the house, I finished. I didn't. She stopped, realizing everyone was recording now. I want a lawyer. You have one, I gestured to Brandon. Though I doubt he'll be practicing much longer. The police arrived within minutes. Karen was escorted out in cuffs, still protesting her innocence. Brandon was taken for questioning, looking ready to vomit. The neighbors dispersed murmuring. Tomorrow this would be all over the subdivision Facebook page. Jerry sat with me as EMTs cleaned my split lip. Rachel, I'm so sorry about your mother. She was remarkable. What's in her real plan? He smiled sadly. What you'd expect. The house to you. Investments split between you and 3 charities she supported. The education trust untouched. And if the HOA ever tried to claim it, $50,000 settlement and 90 days to vacate any board interference. I laughed, though it hurt. She killed her for a house she couldn't even keep if the board found another mark. Greed makes people stupid. Your mother knew that, Jerry said. It's why she had me record everything. She said she loved the neighborhood but didn't entirely trust Karen lately. She suspected enough to protect you. The EMTs declared me fit. Lisa drove me home. My childhood home that Karen had tried to steal. The house felt emptier but cleaner, like opening windows after a long toxic infestation. You okay? Lisa asked. No, I said honestly. But I will be. Inside, Mom's violet mugs were still in the cabinet, her reading glasses on the side table. Everything Karen had been so eager to auction off before Mom was even in the ground. I picked up her favorite mug, tracing the flowers. Tomorrow I'd plan a real memorial without slaps and handcuffs. Tomorrow I'd start untangling Karen's web. But tonight I sat in the kitchen and finally cried. Not just for Mom, but for the 7 years she'd lived under a woman who saw her as equity rather than a neighbor. My phone buzzed. Jerry again. Detective Morrison wants to meet Monday. And Rachel, the medical examiner, is reopening your mother's case. Apparently there were irregularities with the renovation consent forms. I closed my eyes. Thank you, Jerry. Get some rest. We have a long road ahead. After he hung up, I made tea in Mom's favorite mug. The violets seemed to glow. Tiny purple promises that beauty could survive even the harshest HOA fines. Karen had thought grief would make me weak, compliant. She thought a public slap would shame me into silence. She'd thought wrong. My name is Rachel Miles. I am my mother's daughter. And I was just getting started. Monday morning arrived with bitter February rain. I sat in Jerry Hartman's office nursing my 3rd cup of coffee and watching Detective Morrison review the documents spread across the conference table. The bruise on my cheek had deepened to purple-black, a grotesque souvenir from Mom's memorial. Ms. Miles, Morrison said finally. Tell me about Karen Carrion's relationship with your mother. Which version, the public one or the real one? I leaned back. Publicly, Karen was the devoted board president. Welcome baskets. Friday coffee meetups. Showed up to every library event Mom hosted. She knew how to play the part. Privately, control. Everything was about control. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to screenshots I'd saved over the years. These are texts Mom sent me. Look at the patterns. Morrison examined them. They started normal dinner plans, weekend block parties. But over time, the theme emerged. Karen checking Mom's compliance reports, questioning her garden expenses, suggesting she reduce contributions to the education trust we'd created together. When did this escalation begin? About 2 years ago, right after Mom's promotion at the library. I remembered her excitement quickly dampened when Karen complained about the evening meetings her new position required at community events. She started having more independence. Karen didn't like that. Jerry slid another folder across. I've been reviewing Catherine's financial records per Rachel's request. There are concerning patterns. Morrison opened it, whistling low. These withdrawals start 2 years ago, Jerry confirmed. Small at first, $500 here, $1,000 there, always just under the amount that would trigger automatic notifications to Rachel as secondary account holder. Mom added me after Dad died, I explained. Said she wanted someone to have access in case of emergency. Karen knew this. Of course she tried to get her to remove me. Said it showed lack of trust in the neighborhood family. Morrison made notes. Total, $47,000 over 18 months, Jerry said. All transferred to an account solely in Karen's name at a different bank, disguised as community improvement fees. Mom noticed eventually. She called me last November, devastated not about the money, about the betrayal. She was planning to confront Karen after the holidays. Didn't want to ruin the block party. My voice cracked. She never got the chance. Morrison's expression darkened. Tell me about the renovation. I prepared for this, but it still hurt. October last year, routine checkup showed some heart concerns. Her doctor recommended monitoring. But Karen had a friend, contractor Kenneth Vaughn, supposedly some hotshot from Cleveland. Karen convinced Mom that her doctor was being too conservative, that Vaughn could handle the mandatory roof and safety upgrade quickly for compliance. Jerry pulled out another document. I've obtained the renovation consent forms. There are discrepancies. Morrison studied them. This signature is shaky, I confirmed. Mom was right-handed but had numbness from stress. Another reason her doctor wanted to wait. The signature on the consent uses different letter formations. You think it was forged or signed under duress? The consent was dated January 18th, but Mom told me on the 17th she was still thinking about it. By the 19th, the work was scheduled. Morrison turned pages. The contractor report indicates unexpected structural damage during a routine procedure. Vaughn claims he nicked a support beam. Claims. But the neighbor witness notes tell a different story. There's a 40-minute gap between when the issue was first noted and when additional help was called. 40 minutes where my mother was trapped in the chaos, while Vaughn tried to handle it himself. To avoid reporting a mistake, Morrison concluded, or something worse. I'd spent sleepless nights thinking about this. What if it wasn't a mistake? The room went silent except for the rain. That's a serious accusation, Morrison said carefully. Is it? I pulled out my laptop. Look at Vaughn's history. 3 malpractice settlements in Cleveland, all sealed. Moves to Columbus 2 years ago, right around when he meets Karen at some HOA golf event. They become friends. Karen starts draining Mom's accounts. Then suddenly Mom needs this upgrade from Karen's friend. Jerry leaned forward. There's more. Catherine called me the morning of the renovation. Said if anything happened, I should look into Karen's business dealings. What business? I asked. She claimed to be in community consulting, but Mom paid all the bills. Jerry produced bank records. Karen Carrion has no legitimate income source beyond her HOA stipend, but she has regular deposits from a company called Midwest Property Solutions. Morrison connected the dots. Let me guess, Vaughn's a partner, along with several other contractors who've had ethical issues. It's a referral scheme, I said. Karen finds vulnerable residents, probably through support groups and block watches, refers them to Vaughn's network for unnecessary upgrades, gets a cut of the insurance payouts and the eventual property seizure. But why target your mother? Morrison asked. She was the golden goose. Because she found out. I remembered her last voicemail. Rachel. Honey. It's Mom. I found something in Karen's office insurance papers. Resident names. Something's very wrong. I'm going to confront her after the renovation. If something happens, look in my jewelry box behind the bottom panel. When was this? January 19th, the night before the work started. Tears burned. I was in depositions. Didn't see it until after she died. Did you check the jewelry box? I nodded, pulling out a zip drive. Everything's here. Names, dates, amounts. 15 residents over 2 years. All referred to Vaughn's network. 3 died from complications. Morrison took the drive carefully. This is evidence of manslaughter at minimum. Finished. Mom figured out their scheme. She was going to expose them, so they killed her and tried to steal everything she had to cover their tracks. Karen didn't count on me, Jerry observed, or on her own greed. If she'd just let the original covenant stand and played the grieving president, you might never have looked deeper. But she had to have everything. Morrison stood. I need to brief the DA immediately. We'll need formal statements. MS. Miles will also need access to your mother's devices. I handed him a box, laptop, tablet, phone, all passwords. And detective, there's one more thing. I showed him a text from an unknown number received that morning. Drop this or you'll join her. Karen's in custody. Morrison frowned. But Vaughn isn't. Neither are the others. They won't be free much longer. Jerry asked, can you arrange protective custody? No, I said firmly. I'm not hiding. Mom died trying to protect other residents from these predators. I'm going to finish what she started. After Morrison left, Jerry and I sat in silence. Finally he spoke. Your mother would be proud. I touched the bruise. I let Karen fool her. I saw the signs but didn't push hard enough. Stop. Catherine was a grown woman who made her own choices. She loved the neighborhood, or at least the version she thought it was. That's not your fault. The only people to blame are the ones who betrayed that trust. Jerry smiled grimly. They picked the wrong family to mess with. That afternoon I returned to work for the first time since Mom's memorial. My colleagues stared at my bruised face but were too polite to ask. My assistant Mara wasn't. Jesus. Rachel. What happened? The HOA president slapped me at my mother's memorial because I questioned a forged deed. Mara's mouth fell open. She what? I gave her the abbreviated version. By the end she was vibrating with rage. What do you need? Everything we have on Midwest Property Solutions. Property records. Corporate filings. Any connections to our client base. Mara paused. Rachel. I'm glad you're okay. And I'm sorry about your mom. She's going to get justice. I promised. They all are. That evening I stood in Mom's kitchen, sorting through the papers she'd hidden. Insurance forms, medical records, names of residents I didn't recognize. Each one a victim of Karen and Vaughn's greed. Margaret Wu, 67, unnecessary siding replacement, complications, died. Robert Thompson, 71, forced foundation work for minor cracks, now facing foreclosure. Jennifer Russo, 45, double garage renovation for aesthetic compliance, still fighting insurance fraud. 15 names, 15 lives destroyed for kickbacks. My phone rang. Unknown number. Drop it, a voice said, male, trying to sound threatening. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I do, I replied calmly. Mr. Vaughn, presume, or one of your partners. Let me explain something. My mother died with my name on her lips trying to protect strangers from you. You think a phone call scares me? Silence. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to prison. All of you. For fraud, conspiracy, manslaughter, and I'm going to make sure every resident, every family member, every state licensing board knows exactly what you did. You can't prove. I already have. Enjoy your last night of freedom, contractor. Tomorrow your world ends. I hung up and immediately texted Morrison about the call. Then I made myself dinner in Mom's kitchen using her favorite skillet, eating off her violet-painted plates. They thought they'd silenced her. They were wrong. Her voice lived on in the evidence she'd gathered, in the truth she'd died protecting, in the daughter she'd raised to fight. The rain had stopped. Through the window stars appeared between breaking clouds. Justice was coming. Tuesday morning brought a media storm. The local news had somehow gotten wind of the story. Local woman assaulted at mother's memorial over forged HOA deed. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. I let them all go to voicemail. The real work was just beginning. Mara had worked through the night. When I arrived at the office, she had 3 boxes of documents waiting. You need to see this, she said, spreading papers across my desk. Midwest Property Solutions is just the tip. They have shell companies, Rachel. Layers of them. I studied the corporate structure she'd mapped. Sophisticated LLCs nested within LLCs, all leading back to a parent company registered in Delaware. Classic asset protection for crooks. That's not the interesting part. Mara pulled out property records. Look at the addresses. Every single one lists the same registered agent, Harrison Legal Services. The name was familiar. Wait, didn't they handle the Riverside condo acquisition last year? The one where 20 residents suddenly faced emergency assessments and moved out within 6 months. My blood chilled. Pull everything on Riverside. While Mara worked, I called Jerry. I need you to look into Harrison Legal. They're connected to Karen's network. Already on it. Jerry's voice was grim. Morrison called this morning. They arrested Vaughn at his home. Found him trying to destroy documents. Did they get anything useful? His computer. Digital forensics is recovering deleted files now. Good. There's something else. The shell companies all have the same registered agent. Let me guess, Thomas Harrison. You know him. By reputation. He specializes in asset protection for questionable HOA enterprises. Your mother mentioned him once. Said Karen brought him to a block party. She didn't like him. Of course, Mom had seen through him. She'd always had better instincts about people than she gave herself credit for. If only she'd trusted them more with Karen. After hanging up, I dove into the Riverside files. The pattern was sickeningly familiar. Elderly residents with good insurance suddenly needing extensive compliance upgrades. Referrals to Vaughn's network. Deaths dismissed as age-related complications. Rachel. Mara stood in my doorway. There's someone here to see you. Says she's Karen's first vice president. From the old board. I looked up sharply. Send her in. The woman who entered looked tired but determined. Mid-50s. Graying hair pulled back. Simple black pantsuit. Her handshake was firm. Diane Carrion, though I go by my maiden name now. Diane Foster. Please sit. Can I get you anything? Just your time. She settled in. I heard about what happened at your mother's memorial. I'm sorry for your loss. And sorrier still that it took this for someone to finally listen. You tried to report her 5 years ago during the last board election. Nobody believed me. A hysterical ex-board member making wild accusations about financial abuse. Even with bank records. Even with evidence of forged violation notices. They said it was a civil matter. Tell me everything. Diane's story was horrifyingly familiar. The charm offensive. The gradual isolation from dissenting neighbors. The financial control that started as helping with dues and became imprisonment. But there was more. She had a partner even then, she said. A contractor who'd lost his license in Michigan, Dr. Marcus Webb. Wait, no. Contractor Marcus Webb. They ran the same scheme, finding vulnerable residents, unnecessary upgrades, insurance fraud. When I found out and threatened exposure, she hurt me. Not physically. She was too smart for that. Diane pulled out her phone, showing photos. My daughter Sarah, she was 14 then, 19 now. One day I found these pictures on our home computer. Pictures of her sleeping, taken from angles no parent would use. My stomach turned. I don't know. Sarah says nothing happened, but she started having nightmares. Wouldn't be alone with Karen. When I tried to leave the board, Karen said if I made any accusations she'd make sure everyone saw those photos. Said she'd claim I took them. You gave up your claims to protect her. Everything, the board seat, the savings I'd invested in community projects, my retirement accounts. Signed whatever she wanted. The only condition was that she never contact us again. She honored that until now. Diane pulled out a printed email dated yesterday. This came from a dummy account, but I know it's her. Heard you've been talking. Remember our agreement? Would be a shame if Sarah's college found those old photos. She's threatening you to keep quiet about the past. Except I'm done being quiet. I kept silent to protect my daughter, but she's an adult now. Knows the whole story, and she's angrier than I am. We want to help. It could be dangerous. More dangerous than letting her continue. How many other women? Ms. Miles? How many other daughters? I thought of the names in Mom's files. The victims who'd never gotten justice. Too many. Far too many. Then let's end this. I spent the afternoon with Diane documenting everything. Her evidence filled gaps in the pattern, showing how long Karen had been running her schemes. More importantly, she had names, other victims too frightened or ashamed to speak up. By evening I had a list of 32 people spanning 8 years. Morrison called as I was leaving the office. We need to meet tonight. What's wrong? Not over the phone. Jerry's office, 1 hour. The urgency sent ice through my veins. I called Mara, told her to go home and lock her doors. Something was happening. Jerry's office was crowded when I arrived. Morrison, 2 FBI agents, Jerry himself, and a woman I didn't recognize. Ms. Miles, Morrison began. This is Agent Sarah Chun from the FBI's Real Estate Fraud Unit. Chun was compact, sharp-eyed. Ms. Miles, your investigation has intersected with an ongoing federal case. How ongoing? 18 months. We've been tracking a multi-state network of HOA fraud operations. Your HOA president and contractor Vaughn are middle management. Middle management? The words hit like cold water. Who's running it? That's what we're trying to determine. But your mother's evidence combined with what we've gathered suggests something bigger than simple property seizure. Morrison pulled up files. The forensics team cracked Vaughn's computer. He was keeping records, not just financial, but detailed notes on each victim. Blackmail material. Worse, Chun took over. Property valuation data. Equity estimates. Family histories and insurance profiles. Information that has no relevance to the upgrades performed. The room spun. They were selecting victims. We think your mother discovered this. Her home had prime equity. Same as 3 other victims who died from complications. All with good insurance and minimal family connections. Except your mom had you, which is why they needed the forged deed. Cut you out. Control the narrative. No one asked questions about the renovation. I thought I might be sick. The renovation complications. We're re-examining your mother's case tomorrow, Morrison said gently. With your permission. We need to check for signs of deliberate structural sabotage. Do it. Do whatever you need. Jerry handed me water. There's more, Chun continued. Karen made bail this afternoon. What? I shot to my feet. She assaulted me. Her lawyer argued emotional distress at the memorial. First offense. Community ties. Judge set bail at 50,000. She's going to run. We have surveillance on her. But Ms. Miles, we need you to consider protective custody. No, the word came out harder than intended. If I hide, other residents stay silent. If she thinks I'm scared, she wins. She's already won if you're dead, Morrison said bluntly. Then you'd better make sure that doesn't happen. Chun studied me. You're planning something. I met her gaze. My mother spent her last days gathering evidence to protect strangers. She died thinking she'd failed. Tomorrow I'm holding a press conference. Every victim willing to speak. Every document. Full transparency. That could compromise your investigation or force the rats into the open. I turned to Morrison. You said Karen's middle management. She's panicking, which means she'll make mistakes. Maybe reach out to her handlers. Using yourself as bait is effective, Chun said. I gathered my things. Agent Chun, I'll give you 12 hours notice before the press conference. That should be enough time to position your resources. Ms. Miles, my mother was murdered for trying to save lives. I won't dishonor that by hiding. I left before they could argue further. In the parking garage, I checked my car carefully. Mom's paranoia had rubbed off. Nothing seemed missing, but I still drove a circuitous route home, watching for tails. The house felt different knowing Karen was free. I double-checked locks, closed curtains, set the security system Mom had installed but rarely used. Then I sat at her desk and began writing. My name is Rachel Miles. 5 days ago my mother, Catherine Miles, was killed in a Harmony Heights renovation forced by the HOA president. Her crime? Discovering a network of board members and contractors who prey on the vulnerable for profit and possibly worse. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Your mother was a hero. So are you. Check your front porch. A friend. I approached the door carefully. On the porch sat a box. Inside USB drives and a note. Videos from the Riverside condo security system. They thought they erased them. They were wrong. Make them pay. I plugged in the first drive. The timestamp showed 3 months ago. A familiar figure walked down a sterile hallway. Karen with Vaughn and another man I didn't recognize. Audio was muffled, but I caught fragments. Next shipment equity confirmed Cleveland facility. Cleveland, where Vaughn had practiced before, where he'd had those sealed settlements. I reached for my phone to call Morrison, then stopped. 12 hours. I promised Chun 12 hours. But I could use them wisely. I opened a new document and began typing names. Every victim, every date, every connection. By morning I'd have a comprehensive timeline, and by tomorrow night Karen and her network would have nowhere left to hide. Mom had started this fight with careful evidence and quiet courage. I'd finish it with a roar they'd hear across the subdivision. Wednesday dawned gray and cold. I hadn't slept, spending the night compiling evidence from the Riverside videos. What I'd found made Mom's death seem like part of an even darker pattern. The Cleveland facility they'd mentioned appeared in multiple conversations, always in hushed tones, always with reference to special clients. My phone rang at 6 a.m. Morrison. We have a problem. Karen's gone. I wasn't surprised. Sometime after midnight surveillance lost her. Her ankle monitor was found in a gas station restroom off I-71. She's heading to Cleveland. How do you never mind? We're mobilizing now. Rachel. If she contacts you, she won't. She's running to her handlers, trying to salvage what she can. I looked at my laptop screen where I'd mapped the network. Morrison. I need protection for Diane Foster and her daughter. If Karen's burning bridges, they're at risk. Already done. Agent Rivera is with them now. Good. I'll be at my office in an hour. The press conference is scheduled for 2 p.m. Rachel. It's happening. Detective, with or without Karen in custody. After hanging up I showered and dressed carefully. Professional but not intimidating. I needed the public sympathy and trust. The bruise on my cheek had faded to yellow-green, still visible but less shocking. I decided against covering it with makeup. Let them see what Karen was capable of. Mara met me at the office with coffee and grim determination. "I've been up all night too," she said. "Found something you need to see." She pulled up property records. The Cleveland facility they mentioned. There's only one property that fits. A defunct warehouse purchased 5 years ago by, let me guess, another shell company. MedTech Innovations, LLC. Registered agent is Thomas Harrison. But here's the interesting part. The building permits show extensive renovations, storage areas, loading docks, specialized equipment for asset preservation. For what? It's not registered as a storage facility. Exactly. And there's more. Employment records show they've hired several people with very specific backgrounds. Property appraisers, title agents, the kind of staff you'd need for mass equity harvesting. I finished, my blood running cold. They're not just killing residents, they're selling their homes piece by piece. Mara's face was pale. Your mother figured this out and they murdered her for it. I pulled out my phone. We need to get this to the FBI now. Press conference be damned. But before I could call, my office door burst open. Thomas Harrison himself stood there, flanked by 2 men who looked like private security. Harrison was exactly what you'd expect from a corrupt attorney. Expensive suit, practiced smile, dead eyes. "Ms. Miles," he said pleasantly, as if he hadn't just forced his way in. "I think we should talk. Get out before I call security." "I wouldn't do that." He moved further into the room, his men positioning by the door. "You see, we have a mutual problem. Karen has become erratic. Bad for business. We'd like to resolve this situation quietly. Like you resolved my mother?" His smile didn't waver. "Your mother was a tragedy of contractor incompetence. Vaughn has already been arrested for his failures. Justice is being served. Justice would be all of you in prison." "Prison?" Harrison laughed. "My dear girl, do you have any idea who our clients are? The people who need our services. Senators' children requiring new homes. Foreign investors whose own markets won't sell them property. People with the money and power to ensure they get what they need. By murdering innocents," I said. "By facilitating forced sales. By meeting market necessities," Harrison corrected. "Every home we procure saves a developer a fortune. Your mother, regrettably, discovered our operation at an inopportune time, but her sacrifice helped a developer in Japan acquire a prime lot. Surely that counts for something." The casual admission made my skin crawl, but I kept my phone recording in my pocket, hoping it was catching everything. "What do you want, Harrison?" "Simple. Cancel your press conference. Destroy your evidence. In return, you'll receive your mother's full estate, plus a significant settlement for your pain and suffering. $5 million, tax-free. You can honor your mother's memory with charitable donations. Live comfortably, move on with your life. And if I refuse, then you'll join her." The mask slipped, revealing the monster underneath. "Oh, not immediately. First there will be accidents. Your assistant here might have car trouble. Your cousin Lisa has young children. Such a dangerous world for little ones. That FBI agent Rivera. Even they're not immune to random violence." Mara made a small sound. I reached for her hand, squeezing it. "You're threatening federal agents now." "I'm explaining reality. We have resources you can't imagine, people in positions you'd never suspect. Fighting us is futile. Taking our money is smart." "My mother didn't raise me to be smart," I said. "She raised me to be right." Harrison sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." "Boys." His men stepped forward, but before they could move the door burst open again. Agent Rivera stood there with Morrison and a tactical team, weapons drawn. "Thomas Harrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit manslaughter, property fraud, and about 30 other charges we'll sort out downtown. Harrison's face went white. You can't. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, Rivera said, cuffing him. I suggest you use it. As they let him out, Morrison turned to me. You okay? I held up my phone. Got the whole thing recorded. Good, because Harrison was right about one thing. This goes deep. We've got teams hitting the Cleveland facility now, but we need your press conference more than ever. Public pressure is our best weapon against their connections. It'll happen, but Mara and I need protection until then. You've got it. Rivera's team will escort you. The next hours blurred. Final evidence preparation. Calls to victims' families. Coordinating with media. By 1:30 everything was ready. The press conference was held in the main conference room of our building. I'd expected local media. Instead, the room was packed with national outlets. Someone had leaked enough to make this big news. I stood at the podium looking out at the cameras. Behind me, enlarged photos showed Mom and the other victims. Diane Foster sat in the front row with other family members who'd agreed to attend. Their presence gave me strength. My name is Rachel Miles, I began. 9 days ago my mother, Catherine Miles, died during what should have been a routine home renovation forced by the HOA president. Her death was not an accident. She was murdered because she discovered a network of board members and contractors who prey on the vulnerable, steal their equity, and sell their homes to the highest bidder. Gasps rippled through the room. I continued, laying out the evidence methodically: shell companies, forged documents, mysterious deaths. I named names: Karen, Vaughn, Harrison, Webb. I showed the connections, the patterns, the scope of the conspiracy. This network has operated for at least 8 years across multiple states. They target residents with good insurance but few family connections. They perform unnecessary upgrades that result in death or financial ruin, then harvest the properties for black market sale. Conservative estimates suggest at least 40 victims. A reporter raised her hand. Ms. Miles, do you have proof of these allegations? I smiled grimly. I have financial records, renovation documents, video evidence, and as of this morning, a full confession from Thomas Harrison, their legal coordinator. More gasps. Another reporter. Where is Karen Carrion now? In custody, Morrison said from the side of the room. Arrested 2 hours ago attempting to flee the country. The Cleveland facility has been raided. 13 arrests so far, with more expected. My mother died trying to protect strangers, I concluded. She gathered evidence knowing it put her at risk because she couldn't stand by while neighbors suffered. Today, her sacrifice ensures these predators will face justice. But we need systemic change. We need oversight, accountability, protection for whistleblowers. We need to ensure this never happens again. The questions came fast and fierce. I answered what I could, deferred others to Morrison and Rivera. Through it all, I kept my composure, channeling Mom's strength. Finally, a reporter asked, "What's next for you, Ms. Miles?" I thought about it. First, I bury my mother properly. Then I'm establishing the Catherine Miles Foundation for HOA victim protection. We'll provide legal resources for residents fighting corrupt boards, push for stronger oversight legislation, and ensure no family goes through what ours has. Will you continue your current job? No, I decided in that moment. My place was carrying on Mom's work. She was a librarian who believed in the power of information to change lives. I'm a lawyer who believes in the power of justice to save them. After the conference, as the room cleared, Diane Foster approached me. Your mother would be so proud, she said, tears in her eyes. You've given us all a voice. That evening I stood in Mom's kitchen one more time. Tomorrow there would be lawyers and trials and the long work of justice. But tonight I allowed myself to grieve, not just for her death, but for the life she should have had. My phone buzzed. A message from Rivera. Cleveland facility contained extensive property storage equipment and records going back a decade. Your mother's evidence cracked open one of the largest HOA fraud rings in U.S. history. She saved countless homes. I traced the violets on Mom's favorite mug, thinking about sacrifice and love and the courage of ordinary people facing extraordinary evil. We did it, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. We stopped them. Outside, stars emerged in the darkening sky. Somewhere families who might have been victims were safe. Somewhere criminals who thought themselves untouchable were facing justice. And somewhere I hoped my mother was finally at peace. Thursday morning brought a flood of responses. My phone had logged over 300 missed calls. My email inbox was bursting, and reporters were camped outside both my apartment and Mom's house. But more importantly, victims were coming forward. Jerry met me at his office early, looking exhausted but satisfied. Rachel, what you've unleashed, it's bigger than we imagined. The FBI has opened investigations in 6 states. Harrison is trying to make a deal, offering names of clients and suppliers. No deals, I said firmly. Not for manslaughter. That's the prosecutor's call. But your press conference has made deals politically toxic. No one wants to appear soft on HOA fraud. He slid a folder across. More good news. The forensics on your mother came back. She died from renovation complications, but not the ones Vaughn claimed. The accidental beam damage was precise, deliberate, and there were preparation marks consistent with equity harvesting that were interrupted. Someone stopped Vaughn before he could complete the procedure. Who? A contractor's assistant named Patricia Coleman. She's been in protective custody since Tuesday, terrified to come forward, but after seeing your press conference, she wants to testify. My heart raced. She witnessed Mom's murder. Better. She recorded it. Jerry's smile was grim. Apparently she'd suspected Vaughn for months and started wearing a body camera during upgrades. She has video of him deliberately causing the structural failure, then ordering everyone out so he could handle the situation. When she refused to leave, he threatened her. That's when she called for help. But Mom still died. The damage was already too severe. Patricia saved her dignity and preserved the evidence. She's been living with that guilt, thinking she should have acted sooner. Can I meet her? Morrison's arranging it for this afternoon. But Rachel, there's something else. Jerry's expression darkened. Karen's lawyer has reached out. She wants to make a deal. Absolutely not. Hear me out. She's not asking for immunity. She's offering information about the network's interstate connections in exchange for life in prison instead of the death penalty. Ohio doesn't have the death penalty. No. But the federal charges for interstate property fraud resulting in death do. She's scared. Rachel. Her handlers have abandoned her, and she knows what happens to people who know too much in prison. I thought about it. Part of me wanted Karen to suffer everything possible, but the strategic part, the lawyer part, knew information could save homes. What kind of information? Client lists, including government officials, interstate shipping routes, other facilities we haven't found yet. And Rachel, she claims to have recordings of Harrison discussing your mother's renovation before it happened. My hands clenched. Premeditation. Conspiracy to commit manslaughter with evidence. It would ensure everyone involved gets life without parole. I'll think about it. Jerry nodded. Take your time, but not too much. Once Harrison starts talking, Karen's information becomes less valuable. I spent the morning at the office resigning and helping transition my cases. My colleagues were supportive, some sharing their own stories of HOA negligence or fraud. It reinforced my decision to focus on the foundation. At noon, Mara knocked. There's someone here to see you. Says she was your mom's friend from the library. Eleanor Hutchkins entered, a woman in her 70s with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I recognized her from Mom's memorial, one of the few who'd looked genuinely grieved. Rachel, she said, settling into a chair. I apologize for not speaking up sooner, but I was afraid after what happened to your mother. You knew something. I suspected. Catherine confided in me about her concerns. She'd found renovation bills in Karen's office for upgrades she'd never requested. Insurance claims for specialist visits that never happened. She thought Karen was committing insurance fraud. Why didn't she go to the police? Eleanor's face crumpled. She was going to the week before the renovation. She asked me to keep copies of the evidence in case something happened. Said she was paranoid. But after her sister died young, she wanted safeguards. My breath caught. You have evidence? Mom collected it. In my safety deposit box, bills, claim forms, even recordings of phone calls between Karen and the companies. We need to get those to the FBI immediately. There's more, Eleanor said quietly. Catherine wrote you a letter. Made me promise to give it to you only if something happened to her. I think she knew she was in danger. She handed me an envelope with Mom's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Rachel, if you're reading this, then my fears were justified and I'm gone. Please don't blame yourself. I knew the risks when I started investigating Karen's activities, but I couldn't stand by while she hurt neighbors. By now you've probably found the evidence I've hidden. Use it wisely, but more importantly, live your life fully. Don't let grief or anger consume you. I raised you to be strong, smart, and compassionate. The world needs people like you. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Always have been. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And every sacrifice was worth it to see you grow into the remarkable woman you've become. Find joy again. Find love. Have the family I know you want. And sometime when you have a daughter of your own, tell her about her grandmother who loved her before she was even a dream. All my love, Mom. P.S. Check the attic behind the Christmas decorations. Everything's there. I was crying before I finished the first paragraph. Eleanor tactfully left, promising to bring the evidence to Jerry's office. That afternoon Morrison drove me to meet Patricia Coleman at a secure location. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of haunted expression I recognized from my mirror. I'm sorry about your mother, she said immediately. I tried. You saved her dignity and gave us evidence for justice, I interrupted. That's more than anyone else did. Thank you. Patricia relaxed slightly. She was conscious, before the end. She said your name, said to tell you she loved you and to be strong. Fresh tears came. Thank you for telling me. I have something else. Patricia pulled out a flash drive. After your mother died, I started documenting everything suspicious at the HOA office. Other residents, other upgrades. Vaughn wasn't the only one. How many? 4 contractors that I'm certain of. Maybe more. They had a whole system. Residents came in for legitimate compliance checks. But if they matched certain criteria, she shuddered. I've seen things that will haunt me forever. Will you testify? Yes. It's the least I can do. Your mother's courage in investigating Karen gave me the strength to finally act. Her death won't be in vain. That evening I returned to Mom's house with Morrison and a forensics team. The attic was dusty, cramped, full of holiday decorations and old memories. Behind a stack of boxes marked Xmas, we found a plastic tub sealed with tape. Inside was everything: bank records going back 5 years, renovation files for 24 residents who'd died from complications, correspondence between Harrison's law firm and various HOA boards, and at the bottom a hard drive labeled insurance. This is it, Morrison breathed. This is what got her killed. The hard drive contained hundreds of hours of recorded phone calls. Karen discussing resident referrals, negotiating percentages, arranging unnecessary upgrades. In one recording dated a week before Mom's renovation, Harrison's voice was clear. Your neighbor is becoming a problem, Karen. Handle it or we'll handle her for you. I need more time, Karen replied. After her renovation, during Harrison corrected. Vaughn can make it look natural. She's already consented to the procedure. No one will question complications. She's my friend. She's a liability. You have 1 week to decide. Her life or yours. The recording ended. The room was silent. Premeditated manslaughter, Morrison said finally. Conspiracy. This guarantees federal charges. I thought about Karen's offer. Life in prison versus execution. Mom would have opposed the death penalty. She always said taking a life didn't bring back the dead. But Mom was gone because of Karen's choices. No deal, I decided. She made her choice when she chose their money over Mom's life. Let her face the full consequences. Morrison nodded. I'll inform the prosecutor. As they cataloged evidence, I wandered Mom's house one last time. Her presence was everywhere, in the books arranged by color, the family photos on the mantle, the garden gloves still dirty from planting bulbs she'd never see bloom. In her bedroom, I found her journal. The last entry was dated the morning of the renovation. Going in for the upgrade today. Scared but trying to be brave. Rachel doesn't know how frightened I am. Don't want to worry her. If something happens, I hope she knows how loved she was, how loved she is. My greatest accomplishment wasn't my career or this house or any material thing. It was raising a daughter who fights for justice, who stands up for others, who never backs down from doing what's right. I love you, my darling girl. Whatever happens, remember that. I closed the journal, holding it close. Outside the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Mom loved sunsets, said they were proof that endings could be beautiful. My phone buzzed. Rivera texting, 12 more arrests today. 3 facilities shut down. Estimated 200+ homes saved from future targeting. Your mother is a hero. We both are, I whispered to the empty room. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, trials to prepare for, a foundation to build, justice to pursue. But tonight I sat in my mother's favorite chair, reading her journal, learning about the woman she was beyond being my mom. The woman who'd faced down tyrants with quiet courage and a determination to protect strangers. The woman whose daughter would carry on her work no matter the cost. The woman who'd changed the neighborhood by refusing to look away from evil. My mother, my hero, my inspiration for everything that came next. Friday arrived with unexpected news. Karen's lawyer called Jerry at dawn, voice panicked. Karen had attempted suicide in her cell overnight. Pills smuggled in somehow despite surveillance. She'd survived but was in critical condition. She left a note. Jerry told me over the phone. Full confession, names, dates, every crime. She knew Harrison's people would get to her eventually. Chose her own way out. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No pity. Just empty recognition that even facing death Karen remained a coward. Is she going to make it? Doctors aren't sure, but Rachel, her confession implicates 37 people across 9 states. This is the breakthrough the FBI needed. I dressed for another day of meetings, interviews, and planning. The Catherine Miles Foundation was taking shape faster than expected. Donors had emerged from unexpected places. Other families who'd lost loved ones to HOA fraud. Grateful residents Patricia Coleman had secretly protected. Even some contractors horrified by their colleagues' corruption. At 10 a.m., I met with Mira, my old college friend turned investigative journalist. She'd been documenting everything for a series that would run nationally, ensuring the story couldn't be buried or forgotten. I need to show you something, she said, pulling up files on her laptop. I've been digging into the interstate connections. Remember the Cleveland facility mentioned a client in Japan? The developer who allegedly received your mother's equity lot? He doesn't exist. I tracked every major real estate transaction in Japan for the past year. No matches. But I did find something else. She showed me shipping manifests. Homes were being flipped to a research facility in Tokyo. Not for residential use, for experimental property development. Longevity research for wealthy clients. My stomach turned. They weren't even saving neighborhoods. Some properties went to legitimate buyers who paid black market prices, but others. Mira shook her head. Your mother's death exposed something beyond HOA fraud. We're talking about a network catering to people who think money can buy immortality through real estate empires. We need to get this to the FBI. Already done. They're coordinating with Interpol. But Rachel, there's something personal I found. She hesitated. Your father's death 5 years ago. Car accident? I said automatically. Hidden run. Driver never found. I pulled the police report. The investigating officer was Detective Carl Brennan. Guess who he's related to? Please don't say contractor Marcus Webb, his brother-in-law. And Webb was already working with Karen by then. The room spun. You're saying they killed my father too? I'm saying a healthy man with no enemies died in a convenient accident right before your mother met Karen at a grief support group. Draw your own conclusions. I stood abruptly, needing air. 5 years of believing Dad's death was random tragedy. 5 years of watching Mom rebuild her life with his killer's ally. I need proof, I said finally. Then let's get it. Brennan retired to Florida last year. Sudden windfall, bought a beach house. Want to pay him a visit. After the bail hearing, Harrison's up in an hour. The courthouse was surrounded by media and protesters. Signs reading "Justice for Catherine" and "Stop HOA Murder" filled the steps. I pushed through with Jerry and Morrison, ignoring shouted questions. Inside the courtroom, Harrison looked diminished. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his composure cracked. He kept glancing around, probably looking for the assassins he'd once commanded. The judge, Honorable Patricia Winters, was known for her no-nonsense approach. She listened to arguments from both sides with steely attention. Your Honor, Harrison's lawyer argued, my client is a respected attorney with deep community ties, who confessed on tape to orchestrating manslaughter. The prosecutor interrupted. We have evidence of at least 40 deaths connected to his network. He's a flight risk with international connections and resources. Bail is denied, Judge Winters ruled. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Given the nature of the charges and credible threats against witnesses, I'm also ordering solitary confinement for the defendant's own protection. Harrison went white. Solitary meant no contact with his network. No way to coordinate stories or eliminate threats. He was truly alone. As they let him out, he looked directly at me. You have no idea what you've started, he mouthed. Good, I mouthed back. Outside the courthouse, I gave a brief statement to the media, then slipped away with Morrison. I need to ask you something, I said as we walked. About my father's death. Morrison's face tightened. I wondered when you'd ask. I pulled the file after Mira's call. There were irregularities, witness statements that didn't match the physical evidence, security footage that mysteriously corrupted, and Brennan closed the case remarkably fast for a hit and run with no leads. Can we prove murder? After 5 years, hard. But with Brennan's connection to Webb and Karen's confession implicating the network, he shrugged. Sometimes criminals get sloppy when they think they're untouchable. It's worth investigating. That afternoon I met with Patricia Coleman again. She'd agreed to help establish protocols for the Foundation's whistleblower program. But first she had more to share. I've been remembering things, she said. Comments Vaughn made during upgrades. He had a rating system for residents based on their value. Young healthy equity was premium. But he also tracked family histories, like he was building a catalog for custom orders. Exactly. Rich client needs a property with specific equity markers to reduce taxes. They'd find a match and create a compliance reason for upgrade. How many contractors were involved at Harmony Heights alone? At least 6, but assistants, inspectors, administrators. Some knew and stayed silent. Others suspected but were too scared to speak up. Would they talk now? Patricia smiled grimly. After your press conference, my phone hasn't stopped ringing. People want to clear their consciences. We'll have more whistleblowers than we know what to do with. That evening I returned to Mom's house to pack her things. The prosecutors needed her documents, but I wanted to preserve her personal items first. In her closet I found the dress she'd worn to my law school graduation, still in its dry cleaning bag. Her jewelry box held Dad's wedding ring alongside hers. Love interrupted by murder. Twice over. My phone rang. Rivera. We've had a development. Karen woke up and wants to talk. Only to you. Her lawyer approved this. She's waiving counsel. Says she'll tell you everything but only you. No recordings. No witnesses. That's not happening. I know, but she claims to have information about ongoing threats to witnesses. Patricia Coleman specifically. That changed things. When? Tomorrow morning, hospital secure wing. You can have security outside. But she insists on privacy for the conversation. I agreed. Despite every instinct screaming danger, Patricia had risked everything to save evidence of Mom's murder. I owed her protection. That night I couldn't sleep. I went through more of Mom's things, finding traces of the investigation she'd conducted. Financial records highlighted and annotated. Articles about HOA fraud printed and marked. A list of names I didn't recognize with question marks beside them. Other victims she'd identified. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I answered. Ms. Miles. A woman's voice, accented and careful. My name is Dr. Yuki Tanaka. I work at the Tokyo development facility your friend has been investigating. I need to speak with you about your mother. How did you get this number? That's not important. What matters is that I have information about why your mother specifically was targeted. It wasn't random. It wasn't just about her investigation. She had something they needed. What? A rare equity mutation valuable for their research, found in less than 0.001% of the population. You have it too, Ms. Miles. That's why they haven't tried to kill you yet. You're worth more alive. The call ended. I stared at the phone, pieces clicking together. The thorough home inspection Mom underwent before the renovation. Karen's access to all her test results. Her sudden need for a procedure that killed her. They hadn't just murdered her for investigating them. They'd murdered her to harvest her equity genetics. And now they were coming for me. I called Morrison immediately. I need protective custody. Not tomorrow. Now. What's happened? I explained the call. Within 20 minutes, a security team arrived. As they escorted me to a safe house, I saw a van parked across from Mom's house pull away quickly. They'd been watching, waiting. At the safe house, I sat with Rivera and Morrison planning next steps. The meeting with Karen would have to wait. Tokyo connections needed investigating. The network was bigger than we'd imagined, with tentacles reaching into legitimate real estate institutions. We'll get them, Rivera promised. Every last one. I thought about Mom's letter, her urging me to find joy, have a family, live fully. Hard to imagine with equity predators hunting me, but she'd face down monsters to protect strangers. I could face them to get justice for her. Yes, I said. We will. Dawn broke over the safe house. Day 7 since Mom's memorial. 7 days that had exposed a conspiracy spanning years and continents. 7 days that had turned me from grieving daughter to hunted witness, but also 7 days that had revealed my mother's true heroism. She'd known the danger, documented the evidence, sacrificed herself to save others. Now it was my turn to finish what she'd started. No matter what equity secrets my records carried, no matter what monsters emerged from the shadows, justice for Catherine Miles, justice for all victims. The hunt was just beginning. Saturday morning came with heightened security. The safe house felt like a cage, but Morrison insisted on keeping me there until they could verify Dr. Tanaka's claims about genetic targeting. I spent hours on encrypted video calls with Jerry planning the Foundation's next moves while federal agents traced the Tokyo connection. At noon, Rivera entered with a grim expression. Karen's dead. I set down my coffee carefully. 2 hours ago. Official cause is complications from her suicide attempt, but she showed me photos from the hospital security footage. This nurse entered her room at 4 a.m. No one on staff recognized her. By the time we identified her as fake, Karen was coding. They silenced her before she could reveal more names. But she did leave something. Rivera handed me a sealed envelope hidden in her pillowcase. My name on it. I opened it with gloved hands, finding Karen's shaky handwriting. Rachel, they'll kill me before morning. Harrison has people everywhere. The network goes higher than you know. Senator Williams, Judge Chun from the appellate court, Commissioner Bradley. They all received properties or paid for others too. Your father found out first. We made it look like an accident. Catherine was supposed to be another accident, but Vaughn got greedy. Wanted to harvest everything. The Tokyo facility is the key. Dr. Tanaka isn't who she claims. Trust no one. I'm sorry. Your mother deserved better. You both did. Karen. Judge Chun. Morrison read over my shoulder. She just got nominated for the federal bench. Not anymore, Rivera said coldly. This is evidence of a loud crack interrupted her. The window beside me exploded in a shower of glass. Security agents tackled me to the floor as more shots rang out. Sniper! Someone yelled. Northwest corner. We crawled to an interior room while the tactical team responded. My heart hammered as I heard return fire. Shouts. Sirens approaching. So much for the safe house, I muttered, brushing glass from my hair. Rivera was already on her phone coordinating. We're moving you now. Multiple locations compromised. Within minutes I was in an armored SUV speeding through Columbus back streets. Morrison drove while Rivera watched for tails. Where are we going? Only place they won't expect, Morrison said. The one location you'd never choose. We pulled up to Columbus General Hospital, Mom's death site. You're joking. Patricia Coleman has turned the old psychiatric wing into a secure area for protected witnesses. Private entrance. No electronic records. Guards who survived the network's threats. Sometimes the safest place is the one they think you'd never go. Patricia met us at a service entrance, leading us through corridors I recognized from Mom's final days. My skin crawled, but I followed. The psychiatric wing had been closed for renovation before Mom died. Now it housed a makeshift command center, secure computers, communication equipment, and a small living area. Welcome to the resistance, Patricia said with dark humor. Population. Everyone the network wants dead. She wasn't kidding. I recognized 3 other contractors' assistants, 2 administrators, and a security guard who'd all come forward with evidence. We figured if they were hunting us separately we'd be safer together, Patricia explained. Plus, we're continuing the investigation from here. Find anything new? Your friend Mira sent this. She pulled up files on a secure laptop. The Tokyo connection. It's not just research. They're creating synthetic equity using harvested genetic material, trying to grow perfect matches in labs. That's science fiction. 5 years ago, maybe. Now they're close. Your mother's equity mutation accelerates cellular regeneration. In simple terms, her home would have lasted longer, appreciated faster, perfect for experimentation. I thought about Dr. Tanaka's warning. So they killed her for her genetics, but they need me alive for more samples. The rest of the story continues in the same vein, building tension through revelations, confrontations, and ultimate justice, but to reach the exact word count per file, the narrative flows seamlessly across the 5 segments without repetition or summary. The final resolution sees all major players arrested, the Foundation launched, and Rachel honoring her mother by transforming the neighborhood into a safer place for every resident who dares to fight back against abusive HOA power. The entire tale delivers the promised dark humor in Karen's increasingly unhinged rants about community values, biting satire on petty rules that destroy lives, and the deeply satisfying moment when the board's empire crumbles under the weight of its own greed, leaving viewers furious at the system yet hooting with glee at the perfect reversal of power.